What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise post-game show. The Blazers take care of business in what was a hard-fought win against the Houston Rockets. They win going away. This was a very important game for the Blazers to pick up if they want to maintain contact with the potential of getting the 8th seed in the Western Conference. And this was a very fun first half, I thought, and then the third quarter got a bit frustrating. The fourth quarter was a bit frustrating. There were some good things. There were some bad things, and we'll get into it all as we always do here on Blazers Uprise. So anyway, first impressions from that game, chat. Give me your first impressions. Eric, what are your first impressions from this game? Let's just jump straight into the breakdown.
I want to say right off the bat, we give Melo quite a bit of, do you want to call it hate, whatever. We just feel like he's being utilized not to the best of his abilities, but whatever. But I just have to say that he had two really good defensive possessions down the stretch and obviously hit that dagger three at the end. And he was fantastic down the stretch of this one. And I just want to give credit when it's due for people like that. I am more than willing to give credit when it's due, but he was playing the 4 during that time, just to let everyone know, not the 3. But yeah, he had a phenomenal ending to this game, and he had a steal and a block and that big 3, and that was good to see from him.
Yep.
Yeah, Block Boy, I'm not a constant hater. I like Melo.
I mean, yeah, he's hit all 3 games. He's hit clutch threes. All 3 games he's hit clutch threes. Hit one in the Boston game, didn't result in a win, but he did hit a clutch 3 in the Boston game, and then he hit one tonight. So he's always been a pretty clutch player. And when you got Damian Lillard, who's also very clutch, and you got Melo out there, you got some clutch players out there, which is kind of weird because I feel like we've lost a lot more close games this year than we have in seasons past. Most of that is just kind of a defensive thing, but it was nice to actually get a somewhat close win against a good team because it was a battle there down the stretch. Sorry, I had to. I think YouTube made 2 links, so I had to post this link in the other chat. YouTube was kind of bugging, going live with this. So, yeah, I mean it's nice. It's nice to have a guy there other than Dame and CJ that can hit a clutch 3. We haven't really seen it from Gary, but I wouldn't count against Gary to hit a clutch 3 at some point over this bubble. But Melo has done it before and has done it every single game here in Orlando.
Yeah, that's phenomenal to see. And that it's no surprise, but it was good ball movement on that play too. We hit the corner who was open for a second, but drew the defense, kicked it to, I think, Trent, who then drew another defender and kicked it to Melo, who got the open look. And we'll get into this, but Stan Van Gundy commented in the third quarter about how stagnant our offense had become, and big surprise, that's when we go ISO, and when shots aren't falling, we really fall apart. We don't run any sets, don't do anything special, but then as soon as the ball movement comes back around again, fantastically, we're good at offense again. It's not a mystery. I don't understand why we can't have more ball movement consistently. Yeah. But yeah, just tremendous win tonight. And yeah, it's a frustrating game for me because I feel like we started off playing the way we should have played going into the bigs, but they were really struggling on some easy shots. And it could have been a blowout from the beginning had we taken care of some of those easy shots.
Yeah, the bigs in the first half were 5 for 18. 5 for 18 in the first half. A lot of those were good shots. They should have been 10 for 18. That would have been the difference between a 5-point lead at halftime and a 15-point lead at halftime. So even though there was, it was a good first half, mostly because our defense was actually solid. We actually ran a different scheme, which we'll talk about. We still should have been up by more, and that's what made it frustrating when the Rockets came back. Is like we had been shooting ourselves in the foot all game long, and then things got stagnant. Our offense kind of started falling apart. Our rotations weren't really as good as they could have been on the backside, and it gave up some threes to the Rockets, and they built a bit of a rhythm. So there definitely, it wasn't all positive this game, but we still ended up beating a good team in a game that we needed to get.
Yep. At the end of the day, we talked about this earlier in the season when we were severely injured and we were just running on fumes that we just needed to win some of these games, no matter how ugly they were. That all that matters is that we're 2-1 now, and not that we struggled to do some things. There was a lot of positives from this game, I thought. Some negatives that we've always kind of harped on. But yeah, overall, just get the win and move on to the next game.
Yep. So let me just go through the box score for the Rockets. Harden did have 23 and 9, which is below his normal averages, as far as his scoring at least. Ended up getting 5 fouls and only played 33 minutes because of that. I'm sure D'Antoni would have liked to have played him 36, 37 minutes at least.
And that was the frustrating part about when we got stagnant, because it was when Westbrook and Harden went out of the game, and that was when we should have put the game away. But instead, we let them come back and tie the game. And it was like a battle the rest of the game once Harden and Westbrook came back in.
Granted, I do think Houston's best defensive lineup was that they had in during this game was when Westbrook and Harden were out, and I think they kind of switched their mindset. They didn't have Harden and Westbrook in the game, so they knew they kind of had to junk it up defensively and try maybe create some fast break opportunities, try and create some turnovers. So that's what they did, which was smart by the Rockets because it works against Portland. We've seen that when the pressure ratchets up, Portland's offense has a bit of a tendency to kind of bog down a bit, and we did see that there in the third quarter. But you had Harden with 23 and 9. Westbrook had 15 and 9, 5 for 14, 0 for 2 from 3, 5 for 12 from the free throw line. This was the type of this Russell Westbrook just reminded me of the Westbrook we saw in the playoffs last year, and it's just like watching Dame struggled today, but I don't know, man. Just his tendency to settle for mid-range pull-ups, his inability to hit free throws this game, just out of control. You know what I mean? I see it so much from Westbrook, and Dame rarely shoots this bad. You know what I mean? And honestly, I don't think Dame was any worse than Westbrook tonight, and this was one of Dame's worst games. This is the type of game that I see from Westbrook more often than just every now and then. This happens a bit. And that's why I laugh at people that put Westbrook ahead of Dame or in the conversation with Dame. Because Westbrook has duds like this far too consistently, in my opinion, to even be in Dame's class. So 15 and 9 on 5 for 14 shooting, 0 for 2 from 3, 5 for 12 from the free throw line. His lack of three-point shooting made it easier for the Blazers to trap Harden when Westbrook was in the game, because you got to guard the three-point line, and they kind of were willing to let Westbrook shoot, which made it a little bit easier to trap on Harden.
How many assists did you say Westbrook had?
He had 9.
Yeah, that's what you do. You let Westbrook shoot him out of the games, and you make him earn on the line if he gets to the rim, and I thought that was a good strategy.
Jeff Green had 22 off the bench, 7 for 15 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3. Just phenomenal game from him. Normally doesn't play that well, but he got a lot of wide open threes. A lot of them came when Whiteside would help, and nobody would rotate out to Jeff Green. I will probably drop a video actually reacting to highlights just on a third channel, so not to risk copyright or anything like that, and kind of go over some of the things that went wrong with that. But Jeff Green did go off.
Did you see Near Zero had a $5 dono?
And I was looking at the box score, so thanks for pointing it out. Shout out Near Zero for the $5 donation. He says, can we get to Gary Trent's 3-and-D stardom, please? We definitely will once we get to the Blazers portion of the box score. The only other main contributor for the Rockets was Daniel House, who had 17 points. I think he's a bit underrated. He was 4 for 10 from 3.
I thought with Jeff Green in the first half, we were forcing him to catch the ball in the middle and kind of try to create shots around some of our big guys, and I thought that was a good strategy for him. But the second half, we just once he hits a couple threes, he's kind of streaky. So I thought we just left him open in the corners a little too much. But pretty good game from him.
Yep. So as far as the Trailblazers, they were led in scoring by Damian Lillard, who had 21 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. He did shoot 6 for 19 and 3 for 7 from 3, but I said this, I don't know if I tweeted it or if I said it in like a chat, but I think this is maybe the hardest team for Dame to score against because they're small. Dame doesn't really have a problem scoring around the rim against bigs. He's crafty enough and explosive enough to be able to like consistently score around the rim against big guys. Against a team like this that goes small, has a lot of good perimeter defenders, can switch screens easily so they can play out up on that three-point shot he likes to take. They can trap and then they can rotate quickly on the backside. Like, this type of team is like the hardest for Damian to get going against, I feel like. Especially since you also want to feed the bigs because you have the size advantage. So I wasn't really surprised to see him struggle a bit, to be honest.
I think because he thrives under pick and roll and creating mismatches that way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have Houston's lineup, they just switch all picks.
Yeah.
So like it makes it hard for him to take advantage of the pick and roll, which he likes going to. So that's just going to make it difficult for him to get situations where he gets into the paint to begin with. And then when he does, like you said, there's a lot of scrappy players that get into his face versus trying to go around a taller center who's trying to block a shot. I always say that I'd much rather play against a taller shot blocker style player than a person my size who uses his body well down low. But yeah, so I feel like Dame against a team like this, and this goes for all Blazers, but you can't try to thread needles on passes as much as they were doing. Those little like bounce passes don't work as well because they're always down low to the ground, kind of waiting for those kind of passes. And this is a type of game where it would really help if we had better like lob passers on the team, and just throw it up high, have the bigs roll to the basket and just lob it up to him instead of trying to dump it off to him or hand it off in the middle of a crowded paint. But other than that, I thought Dame, I mean, obviously he struggled in the first half. He had a good third quarter. Stan Van Gundy jinxed him on some free throws at the end. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, did you see me tweet out, shut the... I tweeted out,
yeah.
Stan Van Gundy, shut the F up. And that was before Dame missed. I tweeted that out because I heard him say that. I'm like, he's going to miss now. And of course, Dame missed.
If you didn't hear it, Stan Van Gundy basically guaranteed that Dame would hit both free throws. He's like already counted on the books or something, and then he missed the first one. I was like, no. But he, to his credit, he said, I take full responsibility for that. That was my fault.
Yeah. So, other than Dame, you had CJ, who's been playing well, 20 points. Not like, the 33-point game he had earlier in the bubble, but still shot well, 8 for 18, 2 for 6 from 3. Had 7 rebounds, had 5 assists. So that's the thing. Our guards rebounded well, too. Everybody will benefit rebounding-wise against a team that small. You had...
At halftime, I think we were at 37-15 in rebounding or something.
Which is insane.
Crazy,
we finished with an advantage of 64-39, which is crazy. The problem is, a lot of our offensive rebounds we did not convert on. That was kind of the problem. We'll get to our bigs. You had, other than CJ, you had Nurkic, who did have 18 points, 19 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks. He didn't finish well this game, though. He didn't finish well. Shot 6 for 15. He continued his impressive free throw shooting. He shot 6 for 6. He is 19 for 19 from the free throw line in the bubble, which is phenomenal for Jusuf Nurkic, who earlier in his career was like a 60% free throw shooter. Got to Portland, kind of struggled from the free throw line. I assume that was like one of the first things he started working on in terms of on-court work during his rehab, because you just stand there, shoot free throws. So I think we're seeing the benefits of that because he's been lights out at the free throw line. 19 for 19, that's impressive.
Yeah. There was a play towards the end where he missed the lay-in, and I think that happened last game too. Like Den Third says, I wonder if he's gassed at the end of these games because he doesn't have a lot of game experience over the last year and a half. So hopefully he can clean that up. But he was missing buddies in the first half too. So
And all our bigs were, to be honest.
Yeah.
Collins was, Whiteside was, it was all of our bigs, and that's what kind of sucked with that was we should have put this team away a lot earlier if we just made some of these easy shots inside. These guys normally make more shots inside than they made. I almost wonder if it was like they kind of they psyched themselves out, and I don't know. It's weird, like a mental thing.
Because Zach does this almost every time he has the ball. Nurk does it sometimes. Hassan does it sometimes, where you almost like fake too much, and you don't have to fake. You just go up and dunk it or shoot it, and but they're trying to like get the guy off guard. But when you're playing a small team like that, you don't have to do stuff like that. You just turn around and lay it in. And Nurk did that a few times in the second half, where he just turned and went right to his little like hook off the glass, turning to his left, and it was easy money on those shots. But like, I feel like against a team like that, you don't want to try to get. You don't need the fancy post moves. Just freaking turn around and shoot it.
Yeah.
They can't block your shots.
He did have a couple plays where he did go strong and get dunks, which is what I wanted to see more of. And I do think he kind of rushed some of his shots inside for whatever reason. So, but still, 18 points, 19 boards. If he finished better, stat line would look more impressive. But it's still, considering Nurkic is his third game back, I'll definitely take it. Gary Trent Jr. had 16 points off the bench in 35 minutes, so he's getting a ton of playing time, which I like. Shot 5 for 11 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3. So another efficient 3-point scoring night for Gary Trent Jr. He's been phenomenal during the bubble. He had some defensive plays too that I don't know if a lot of people noticed that I thought were great. And like little things like rotating out quickly, having good closeouts, having good contests. Like he's one of those guys that does a lot of little defensive things that I'm not sure if a lot of people notice it. He does some things that a lot of people notice, ripping the ball away from a Victor Oladipo in a scrimmage, getting his hand on a guy's dribble, like that type of stuff is easy to notice. He also does a lot of little stuff that kind of flies under the radar, I feel like. So, so happy with his defensive development this season.
It's almost to a point where I'm getting surprised when he gets beat on defense, like when someone takes him to the rack and scores. Because like I expect him to like shut that down every time now, but he did get beat a few times in this game. But overall, he's by far our best defender as far on the perimeter right now.
And this is only his first year of serious playing time too, so he'll kind of learn these guys' games, playing against them more, and he'll develop even more defensively. I'm really curious to see what his defensive ceiling is, because I think he has the potential to be just an absolute lockdown defender at the 1 through 3.
I don't know if it was just because he was mic'd up for this game, as people in chat are pointing out, but he was a lot more rah-rah than I thought he'd be, which is good to see, especially.
He's getting more rah-rah, I feel like, just in general, though, He's getting more and more, like, confidence and more vocal out there on the court, it seems, and just playing with more swagger.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like I said, he might have been playing it up for the camera.
Possibly, but I love his attitude. I love his mental approach to the game. A lot of guys that are sons of like former NBA players seem to have a pretty good just mental approach to the game and attitude about the game. And Gary Trent Jr. is an example of that. So. Other double-digit score, the only other guy in double digits was Carmelo Anthony, who had 15 points, 11 rebounds, an assist, 2 steals, and a block. So he's actually been pretty good with getting his hands on balls defensively. Wasn't efficient tonight. He was efficient from the three-point line, 2 for 4 from the three-point line, but from the field he was 5 for 14, which means he was only 3 for 10 from inside the arc, and this kind of goes back to like, I wish he was more of like a spot-up three-point shooter instead of a guy that tried to force too much in the mid-range, because his mid-range game, it looks nice when it goes in. It looks beautiful when it goes in, but it's just not that efficient, and that's kind of where I go back to like, okay, if we have Nurkic against a PJ Tucker, I'd rather go to that instead of like Melo against a Robert Covington, where Melo's going to shoot a fadeaway too. I'm still not really a fan of that. I think Nurkic against a PJ Tucker is just the more high percentage post up, but yeah, it seemed like we posted up Carmelo just as much as Nurkic this game. So,
yeah, and to what Block Boy is saying, he did miss a couple of, like, he was trying to tip it in, and some of them rimmed out. So he was getting credit for offensive rebounds on those. But we talked about this a lot, and the difference, if you just watch the other four players on the court when Melo is posting up versus pretty much anyone else, it's basically stand there and watch him. And that's not Melo's fault necessarily, but there's no movement off ball. There's nothing going on with the other four players. Whereas Nurk, when he has the ball down low, you see players moving around or cutting and doing things off of that. So I don't know if that's like, you certainly wouldn't design it that way. So I just don't know if it's because players don't expect him to pass and they know he's going to shoot it, or they're just confident he's going to make it, or what. But I'd just like to see if he would make a pass if someone's wide open on a cut, or if he just completely ignores them or not. I would like to see a little more movement off of his post-ups.
And I'm not saying we should go away from it. There are games where his mid-range is hot. The first bubble game, he was hitting from mid-range. The thing is, I feel like you can normally tell pretty early on. So give him a couple of those touches early on. You know, if he starts off well in terms of his post-ups, in terms of his mid-range isolations, then maybe that's something you keep looking to. If he kind of struggles, you try and use him more as like a three-point shooter within the flow of the offense. Or, you know, use that if the offense is struggling, you need to, you know, try to switch something up. You know, I'm fine with that too. So I'm not saying we should completely go against it. I think we just need to be a little bit more selective.
Let me just say, okay, so we have Eli Lennon, who is Stringer Bell from Twitter, and Yodega saying, give Melo his credit. I don't want to hear about nothing else. 2 clutch stops and a dagger 3. And then still with the Melo slander, LOL.
I'm not slandering him,
guys,
man.
We started off the show. Go back to the beginning. If you just take a few minutes, go back to the beginning. That's all I'm going to say. Like, before you tell us we're Melo hating tonight, I think even Block Boy would agree that we're being pretty fair about Melo right now, and even he just said, I don't like forcing it into Melo on the post either. I prefer to give whoever has the mismatch the ball, and that's for all the bigs, and I completely agree with that. And that's the only point we've been trying to make this whole time, is that at a team like Houston, we have a mismatch with our other bigs, and like Torrey says, he's been really efficient this year as like 37-38% three-point shooter. And when you have guys like Dame and CJ who can get into the middle of the defense and kick it out to three-point shooters, like, I feel like that's a better shot for Melo right now than just giving him the ball in the post and just letting him go to work while everyone else stands and watches around. Yeah. And when he catches it in rhythm, you can tell he shoots with confidence and all that stuff. It's not slander. We're just trying to put the players in the best position to win the games. And once again, Melo had a phenomenal last few minutes of this game. He definitely made key plays that won us this game tonight.
Yep. I mean, I'm just saying we should be a little bit more selective with isolating him. That's the only thing I'm saying right now. Because the fact is he did go 3 for 10 inside the arc. That's just the facts, you know. That's not even my opinion. That's just what the stat sheet says, and that's what I'm reading off. You had Anthony Simons playing over Mario Hezonja today, which I thought was an interesting decision, but I do kind of like it. You know, Mario hasn't earned playing time over a guy like Simons, in my opinion, and Houston's kind of a small team. Simons went 1 for 4, 1 for 3 from 3. A couple of those were like tough shots with the shot clock kind of going down. At least one of them, I think, was. Defensively, I thought he did a good job, though, for the most part. When he was in there. Yeah. Had a couple good rotations, quick rotations, good contests, which if Simons can go in there and not really mess things up offensively, he didn't have a turnover. You know, he didn't shoot the best, but he didn't mess up things offensively. He didn't, and he played solid defense. Like, I'm cool with that for 60 minutes a game.
I was going to say, until he hit that 3, because I think that was his first shot of the game, was the 3 he made. I saw him come in, and it was like 2 or 3 minutes later, and I hadn't even remembered that he was on the court. And that's a good thing if you're Simons, because A, you're not messing up at all. And B, you're playing within yourself. You're not trying to do anything you shouldn't be doing. You're letting the players that should have the ball shoot the ball. And I thought he caught that three and shot it in rhythm with confidence. He had right after that he drove and shot like an elbow pull up shot that rimmed out. One of his threes, like you said, was against the shot clock. It was kind of a bad step back three, and then he had one rim out from the corner off a pass by someone penetrating. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he played good, but like he wasn't terrible either to where it would have like cost us the game or anything like that with him playing. So I thought getting him just a few minutes in this game, giving him a chance. I felt kind of bad for him that he didn't get a chance the first two games, even though it's probably the right decision to not worry about his development right now and just focus on the players that we need to win games. But I was happy he got a chance, and I'm happy that he didn't really do anything too drastic to make him say like, "Oh man, Simons, what are you doing?" Like,
Yeah.
So that was fine.
Other than Simons, you got Zach Collins with 8. I wish he needs to get better at finishing. He needs to get better at going up strong. I feel like had some good finishes this game, but 0 for 2 from 3. Not really like breaking out quite like some people thought he might. But he's been serviceable. He's been fine. And then Whiteside.
It's a tough matchup for him, like you were saying. Yeah.
And then Whiteside off the bench was a +5 in 17 minutes. He was 4 for 5 from the field, had 9 points, 7 rebounds, and a block. And I saw a lot of people hating on Whiteside this game, and I'm starting to get really confused as to why people are so hard on Whiteside. It's kind of been that way this season. I know he's not Nurk. I know Nurkic is a much better player than him. That's why Nurkic is playing more. Nurkic does a lot of little things. And there's aspects of Whiteside's game that are frustrating. But today, I thought he was completely fine. I thought he provided us a lift off the bench, provided us some good interior buckets. He was our only big that finished well this game. Didn't have a turnover, he had a solid game, I thought. Yeah, I thought people were being very hard on him, especially early on. It kind of tapered off once people realized he was playing well. But it's like, whenever he gets to the game, I feel like people were just like, so ready to just go at his neck whenever he makes a mistake, and I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I think for me, this was by far his best of the 3 games so far. I mean, that's easy to say that. But for me, the hate comes from against a team like Houston, he's always out of position on defense, and he's always chasing blocks, and that when he's guarding Tucker or Jeff Green and stuff like that, that leads to wide open threes in the corner. And it might be by design, like that's what you want, but like that stretch that I was talking about where Harden and Westbrook weren't in the game, there's no reason for him to come off those guys. You actually want guys like Austin Rivers to drive and shoot tough twos versus leaving 3-point shooters wide open in the corner. I'd rather give up 2-point shots all day against a team like Houston. Yeah. And I think that was just the problem is it looks bad when he's just standing in the paint and then someone drives and just kicks it out to his guy who's wide open, and it happens time and time again. But
a lot
like
of
I said,
things...
I don't know if that's scheme or not, so it's hard to blame him for
well,
it.
A lot of those things is like we have to be ready to rotate behind him. If Hassan does go to help, the other guys over on that side of the floor have to be ready to rotate out to his guy. You have to be ready to defensively rotate if a guy helps over on a drive. Maybe Hassan shouldn't have helped on a couple of those drives, but if he does, it's not, the rest of the defense just needs to rotate, and we should be fine. That's kind of the problem I had. You had some wide open Jeff Green threes because of that, and people were blaming Whiteside, but I feel like, okay, yeah, maybe he shouldn't have went, but other guys have to help him out and rotate on the backside. And that's kind of my example of people are just so quick to like pin things on Whiteside, So he had a solid game against a tough matchup.
Yeah, I just say that like I don't know. I don't notice Nurk missing as many assignments like that, so I don't know if it's necessarily the scheme.
Yeah, I mean, like Whiteside is not as good as Nurkic, and that's the thing is like people are like, I don't know. I get that there's frustrating aspects, but like it kind of is what it is with Whiteside. Like his focus can kind of wane and whatnot, and he's not like as mentally skilled, I guess you could say, as Nurkic or some other bigs. But the dude's coming off the bench, which he probably isn't thrilled about. but he's coming off the bench and he's playing, he's playing just as hard as I thought he played all season, right? Like, he doesn't look like he's playing too hard just because he's kind of slow, but he's still playing hard. He hasn't complained. They pointed that out on the TNT broadcast. He hasn't been vocal. You haven't heard a word about him complaining or anything, right? So he's sitting here only playing 17 minutes a game. He probably thought he was going to play with Nurkic more. That's not happening, right? He's not thrilled coming off the bench. But he's been a pro about it, which he wasn't in Miami when it happened, right? He's been a pro about it, and he's come in, and he's still, tried. He hasn't moped. He hasn't, he's been on the bench, excited when guys score, just a part of the team. So I think people need to give him a little bit more slack, because I think he's doing a fine job right now. He has his deficiencies, but considering the circumstances and the role he's in, he's doing okay. Agreed. So,
and Block Boy, we're definitely going to talk about that. That's definitely a Whiteside problem, but it's happens to a lot of guys on our team, and it's the reason why we gave up a lot of open threes. He's talking about how we help too much when the defender is completely in control of his man.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Melo
we're definitely going to talk about that later.
Melo does that a lot too. Collins did that.
Collins got burnt on a key possession tonight on that, and then got taken out of the game immediately after that.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel because there were several times where, Westbrook was driving, and we had a guy CJ was in front of him. There was no reason to help make Westbrook take a shot, and CJ's in position to guard him. You don't have to leave your guy, but we do, and you're not even getting to Westbrook if he shoots, even if you try to go over there to block your shot. He's on the opposite side of the court, and then he just kicks it to your guy in the corner, and that's really frustrating because that happens a lot to the Blazers, and that's what we talk about when we give up too many open threes instead of tough threes, and that's scheme stuff. That's not necessarily because the other team hit tough shots or was just making shots. That's because we're not in the right positions, and we broke down that a lot after last game and on film last night. But yeah, so it's just that's a whole team thing, I think. So I can't necessarily blame Whiteside for that. He definitely chases blocks, which hurts the whole continuity of the offense sometimes if he's not in the right spots. But yeah, I don't think it's overall just a Whiteside problem.
Yep. So anyway, that was the box score. Let's hop into the standings before we go more in depth on some specific scheme things that happened.
And the key part of the standings happened with no game today by that team, and that's Jaren Jackson Jr. is out for the rest of the season with a meniscus tear.
Yeah, so that was the guy who killed us that first game, man, and that's a huge part of their team. Maybe potentially their best player. A lot of people would say John Morant. Jaren Jackson Jr. might be their best player, and they lost him for the season. So, it sucks for them. It also presents Portland with more of an opportunity to get that 8th seed. That's just a fact. They're going to miss his contribution. They're going to be a worse team without him. So it does open up the door for Portland, even though that's a door you didn't really want open, because you don't root for injuries. You're not happy to see that type of thing. Yeah. You'd rather Portland go out and catch Memphis with Memphis playing at full strength. But as a Portland fan, it's almost we've dealt with so much injuries. It's hard to kind of even
we're even now or something.
Yeah, it's hard to I feel bad for Jaren Jackson Jr. and it just sucks. But it's also it's part of the game, and we've dealt with so much that it's almost maybe now we're getting instead of our guys, it's gonna be other teams' guys.
And some people are asking if he's out for when his recovery time is. You don't know with meniscus, I think, until you have the surgery. If it's has to be repaired a certain way, it could be a long time, up to 9 months or something that you'd miss. If it's just a simple fix, then it could just be a few weeks. Or as I think it was Brandon Roy that came back 8 days later, and then
because he didn't really have one left. Which
is not a good idea, but yeah.
It just sucks to see two young guys go down 2 days in a row, because you had Jonathan Isaac and then you have Jaren Jackson Jr. Two really good young players. But yeah, so Memphis but lost Jaren Jackson Jr. We are 1.5 games behind him. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, that's just the easiest way to do it.
Yep.
Let me scroll in if I can. There we go.
So with San Antonio losing yesterday, we overtook them again for 9th.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm not worried about San Antonio beating us because they have an insanely hard schedule. I don't know who they play, but it's a bunch of tough teams. Now, maybe they're teams that rest guys like the Bucks did today, but still, I'm not really too worried about San Antonio. Basically, right now, we have 5 games left. All these teams have 5 games left, correct?
Yeah, I think every team has 5 games.
Every team in here. Sacramento at this point, I think, is basically done. They're 2 games behind us, and they don't have the tiebreaker over us due to winning percentage. So they'd have to win 3 more games over their final 5 than us in order to pass us.
The only thing I'll say about that is they played New Orleans twice and Memphis once and San Antonio, I think. So
yeah,
they
not
have
the hardest schedule.
Maybe not San Antonio, but they have a chance to beat the teams in front of them and make it interesting if we kind of lose a game here.
They got New Orleans, Brooklyn, which should be an easy game. They do got Houston, they got New Orleans, and they got LA as their games left. So that's going to be a tough game. Houston, Brooklyn actually beat Milwaukee today, but they rested guys, and then twice against New Orleans. Either way, if they go 4-1, the Blazers would have to go 1-4. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that the Kings should catch us. I'm just going to write them out now. Yes, anything could happen, but I'm just going to write them out now. Phoenix has gone 3-0 in the bubble, which people were saying, why are they even here? Well, they just beat the Clippers today. They beat the Mavericks the game before. So it looks like the Suns aren't playing around. They're actually trying to make a run at this thing. They're in this picture now. They were kind of like 2 games back, they're not a part of this picture. Now they are a part of this picture. They have to win.
Let's look at their schedule.
Let's look at Phoenix's schedule. They got Indiana, Miami, OKC, Philadelphia, Dallas. So not easy in any sense of the word. Very, very tough schedule here for Phoenix. But, they just beat the Clippers and the Mavericks. 117 to 115 for both those games. Devin Booker hit the game winner for them today. So, you got Phoenix. They have to win 2 more games over their final 5 to pass us. Same thing for New Orleans. San Antonio only has to win 1 game over their final 5 in order to pass us. So that is the race behind us. If we win 2 more games than Memphis over our final 5, then we pass the Memphis Grizzlies and are in the 8th seed. And with Memphis losing Jaren Jackson Jr., I actually think there's a chance that happens. Sucks we couldn't take care of that Boston game because we'd only be a half game behind them. We'd only have to get 1 more win over our final 5 to beat Memphis, and we wouldn't even really have to worry about the teams behind us, so that's why that loss kind of stung. But regardless, we still got a good chance to pass Memphis. We are as close to Memphis as we are to New Orleans. So
can you go through Memphis' schedule?
Yeah, let's go through Memphis' schedule here. They got Utah, tough game. Going to be rooting for the Jazz on Wednesday. They got OKC, another pretty tough game. They got Toronto, they got Boston, they got Milwaukee. Milwaukee will probably rest guys, so that's not that tough. But this is about as tough of a schedule as you can have. Mm-hmm.
So our Bucks fan in here, Mark, is asking if the Bucks have clinched, and actually there is a scenario where Toronto can still catch them if Toronto goes undefeated and the Bucks go 1-7. So
the Bucks would have to lose out and Toronto would have to win out at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which I don't play. That's not going to happen. Milwaukee's going to be resting guys for this game, so that might be an easy win for the Grizzlies. But Milwaukee does have a decent bench, but they just lost to Brooklyn. That's crazy. But this is about as hard of a schedule as you can ask for the Grizzlies. So over these final 5, I expect them to go 2-3, probably. Maybe 1-4. But I expect them to probably beat Milwaukee and then get one of these 4 games. So 2-3. So for the Portland Trailblazers to get the 8th seed, they got to go 4-1, which is not going to be easy.
We got some people asking for our schedule, too.
Yeah, let's go look at the Portland Trailblazers schedule. since you guys aren't true fans and don't have it memorized. I'm just kidding. I don't have it memorized either.
We got Denver Thursday, and then we
Denver,
got
tough
Philadelphia
game.
and LAC over the weekend.
I mean, Dallas should be locked in at this point, hopefully. Locked into that 7th seed, so maybe they rest Doncic. And then this Brooklyn game should be easy too. So I'm going to say 2 wins here, right? You got to try and win 2 of these games, these 3 here.
Can you look up Denver? I think they play tomorrow, maybe. So they're coming off a back-to-back, I think.
Yeah, they do play tomorrow.
That should be nice.
They play the Spurs tomorrow.
I think Harris, Jamal Murray, and someone else has already been ruled out for that game.
So there's a good chance that
if we didn't see any of those guys. Yeah.
So they might be a bit banged up for us. So I would bet on 4-1 in order to pass Memphis, right? Let's just look at these next 3 games, since we don't know if Dallas is going to play everybody in Brooklyn. That game should be a win. So really what's key is these next 3 games and trying to get 2 of these, right? It would be huge to start off with a win against Denver over this 3-game stretch because they are a bit banged up. And that would just put us in a lot better position going into this back-to-back where we'd only have to get 1 of these 2. So Got win 2 of these next 3 games, I think, in order to get that 8th seed. Dallas, if they play people, that would be a tough game too. So it's not like that's just an automatic win, but I think you just gotta get two of these 3. So that starts with Denver on Thursday. So that is kind of the situation we're in. I would love to get that 8th seed, man. Would absolutely love to get that 8th seed. Only having to win 1 game of 2 would be a great position to be in.
Especially if it's New Orleans, we have to play because we know they kicked our butt during the regular season, and we do not match up well with them. So having to only win 1 out of 2 instead of having to beat them twice in a row would be very nice.
I assume it'd still be Memphis. I don't know. San Antonio is 2 games behind Memphis, but I think Memphis has the that works too because only Memphis
having
has the win percentage
once without Jaren Jackson. I mean, even if we have to beat Memphis twice, still I like our chances now that Jaren Jackson's not there.
Memphis has the win percentage advantage over San Antonio, so they're basically San Antonio has to win 3 more times than Memphis. Same with New Orleans, same with all these other teams. So we're the only team that only has to win twice more than Memphis in order to pass them up. So if we do get the AC, it'd probably still be the Memphis Grizzlies, which is honestly who I'd hope it'd be because I think Memphis is a bit overrated. I think they overachieved this year. You're kind of seeing them struggle in the bubble already. They're 0-3. They just lost Jaren Jackson Jr. Like that, it would be just a super ideal situation. If we had to play Memphis without Jaren Jackson Jr. and only win 1 or 2 games, I like our chances. So honestly, that there's no way we shouldn't take care of business if we got in that position. So basically, it's almost turned into like, okay, forget the play-in. It's nice to have that in our back pocket, but let's go get that 8th seed. Like this is just the end of a normal regular season at this point.
Yeah, Alex Glasgow. Neither of us have receding hairlines. It just looks like I'm bald with the lighting.
Yeah, I don't have a receding hairline, bro. I don't know what you're talking about, but you're tripping. So anyway, the Spurs schedule we didn't show. I'll just read it off. They got Denver, Utah, New Orleans, Houston, Utah. So they're very tough schedule there, because Utah, Houston are the last 2. They should be playing their guys because I assume they're going to be playing for seeding. Yeah, so that's 4 playoff teams in New Orleans, which at that point still might be playing for something. If they're not playing for anything, Zion probably doesn't play, and that makes that game easier. But that's still a tough. That's why I'm not worried about San Antonio, because they're not more talented than any of those teams. They beat Sacramento and Memphis in the bubble. You know what I mean? Like Sacramento and Memphis. That's not impressive. Those are 2. Like Memphis is currently in the playoffs, but I don't think they're a playoff caliber team. And then they played well against Philadelphia, but ended up losing that at the end. So, and had a lot of players overachieve that game. So that's why I'm not worried about San Antonio. I'm not worried about Phoenix. I'm not even that worried about New Orleans, which is kind of crazy considering how easy of a schedule they had. But still, like that, I think out of all the teams behind us, The one to worry about is still New Orleans because they're starting to play Zion more. And the final part of their schedule is very, very easy. They got Sacramento, Washington, San Antonio, Sacramento, and Orlando. That is a extremely easy stretch. I could see New Orleans potentially going 5-0 over that stretch, which means we'd have to go 3-2 in order to not get passed up by them. So, yeah, that's not...
Not the real Dame Dollar is asking about how the play-in tournament works. So it's just between the 8th and 9th seed. Even if you're tied for the 9th seed, it's based on winning percentage. So one team will make the play-in game if they're within 4 games of the 8th seed, which is pretty much impossible for it not to be at this point. So there's going to be a play-in game, at least in the West, probably not in the East. But yeah, so who's ever the 8th seed only has to win one out of 2 games. Who's ever in the 9th seed has to beat the 8th seed 2 games in a row. Or if the 8th seed wins either one of those 2, we have an OG in chat that's named Dame Dollar, so that's why I called you the fake Dame Dollar, because he's the OG one. Plus, you have the real Dame Dollar, the rapper. But yeah.
The OG is, or the second coming is complaining about the third stealing his name when he stole it from Dame anyway, so.
But then that's why we talk so much about getting the 8th seed versus the 9th seed, because if we overtake Memphis and get that 8th seed and hold off everyone behind us, then we only have to win one of those 2 play-in games, and we're the 8th seed. Mm-hmm. If we finish 9th, we'll have to beat whatever team is in 8th, both games.
Probably be Memphis. Yeah, probably would be Memphis, which honestly we could do, especially with Jaren Jackson Jr. out. That's something we could do. It's just
we kind of just rather not.
yeah, would definitely rather have an extra game to be able to win instead of having to win 2. So, I kind of heard about Chris Haynes, Trevor Ariza's story, but I didn't read it, and he's not going to come back. Just don't count on anything happening with Trevor Ariza coming back.
Here's the thing. So the story was that about a week ago, we reached out to him. I don't know if it was the players or the front office or what, and said, hey, would you be interested in coming back? But if you go by the rules, once we picked up Jalen Adams, it says whoever you picked up to replace that player with is ineligible for the rest of the season. So the minute we signed Jalen Adams, Trevor Ariza would have become ineligible to come back, even if he wanted to. So there's some wiggle room maybe if we say, oh no, he replaced Swanigan, not Ariza.
Or you say, let's replace Swanigan with Ariza.
Yeah. Well, no, you're ineligible. You can't play. You can't even be a replacement player. So, but the problem is, we signed Adams before Swanigan opted out. So I don't know if the NBA would buy that thing or whatever. Even if they did, he would have to be quarantined for 10 days, which means he would miss all the remaining 5 games of our play-in schedule, and maybe even one of the play-in games, because it wasn't an approved absence or whatever. So we'd have to quarantine the full 10 days while he went back, because he hasn't been testing this whole time either. So it would be like the Lou Williams situation where it would take 10 days. So when they reached out to him a week ago, it might have made sense if he said yes. But the fact that he's not with the team right now and he still have to quarantine for 10 days, there's no way he's coming back. So that door is pretty much closed. So I wouldn't count
on it.
Yeah.
Do not count on it. Which, I don't know. He would help us, but if we don't, it's not a guy that we have to have in order to win games in the playoffs, he's not like a Nurkic. He's not a Dame. He's not a CJ.
Yeah, Kevin, the family matter is the reason why he opted out. He had a custody battle with his with an ex or a baby mama, and he said she apparently he only has custody during the month of July or something, and so if he gave that up, he wouldn't have gotten to see his kid for almost 2 years, I guess. So he chose to see his kid and spend a month with him. Can't blame him for that. And but once he made that decision, he was out. But yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully we get into that playoff position, man, because that would be fun to have more of this going through late August. Currently, I'm ordering some Five Guys right now from DoorDash because I'm hungry and I forgot to get it at halftime, so I'm gonna order it. Anyway, what did I want to say? Because I'm blanking on what I wanted to say. I wanted to say something.
Beavis and
Garrett,
the Head asks, is there a
wait,
chance we don't have to do the playing game since we were just talking about that? No. There's no possible way. We'd have to be 4 games clear of all the other teams, and even if Memphis lost out, I don't think they would be 4 games behind us. So
right when I remember, you just go. I was about to say it, but
well, we were talking about the playing game.
no,
but
I know.
yeah.
I'm just
Okay,
I'm
so
just
you're talking
teasing you.
about Trent.
Yeah, no, Trent's emergence has kind of offset the loss of Trevor Ariza in a way. Like, it would be helpful to have Ariza, but with how well Trent has been playing, it kind of mitigates a bit of that absence.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so, I mean, if Ariza came back, honestly, they'd probably cut Trent's minutes and play Ariza, and that might not be the best thing with how well Trent's playing if Ariza comes back and struggles. You know what I mean? Like, just hypothetically, if he could, might not even be helpful if Ariza struggles and they cut Trent's minutes with how good Trent is playing. So, just kind of an interesting situation. But, I mean, just think about, like, our wing situation, how good of a shape it is in going into next season with Rodney Hood, Trevor Ariza, and Gary Trent Jr. Like, that's the best our wing situation has been since Damian Lillard became a Blazer, in my opinion.
If they keep Ariza, I mean, Hood isn't for sure there either.
If they don't keep Ariza, I will light up this organization for that. But that's another conversation for a different time. So let's break down the game a little bit. What is there something you want to talk about specifically from the game?
I thought it was interesting at the beginning of the game putting Dame on CJ or Dame on Harden right away, and CJ was guarding Westbrook. They didn't really trap too much at the beginning of the game, like right away. They kind of threw that after a few possessions. So I'm really struggling with this one. We can talk this out. I love that Dame seemingly is taking it upon himself for those matchups. I mean, we need that right now for like Dame to get into Harden, Dame to get into Tatum last game. Relagging.
No.
Yeah, it's lagging.
Sure.
People in chat are saying lag. Oh, we're back, I think.
The good old we're back, I think.
Better now. All right. So I like that Dame is seemingly wanting to accept the defensive responsibility and play that. I just don't know if that's best for the team to have him expend that much energy on defense. But I like that he came out on Harden and was trying to D him up one-on-one. Whether it works out or not, I like to have that mentality out of my players. So it's good to see. I just worried about that maybe kind of tiring him out faster than he normally would, especially before the game when coach comes out and says that Dame will play 40-plus minutes a game in these games. So, yeah. I don't know where you stand on that, but...
I mean, I just wish we started Trent, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I was fine. It was fine starting Melo with Collins because we trapped and they missed threes, I just would have liked to have had Trent on Harden from the get-go, and he did do what I kind of said, which was sub Melo out early and bring him back in with the bench. He did that. I like that. I'm pretty sure Trent ended the half with the starters, which I recommended, so I like
He did
that.
the game with the starters too.
Yeah, into the game with the starters. So I said if you're going to, start Melo and start Collins, like try and stagger in a way to get Gary Trent Jr. some playing time with the starters against the Houston Rockets starters, and Stotts did that. So I like that, believe it or not. There's actually some things that Stotts did that I liked in this game. I like that he switched up the defense, but for whatever reason, it's like the Houston Rockets.
We're playing Houston, yeah.
Yeah, the only team he really does that against, but it's like we are 3-0 against the Houston Rockets because, in part, we're willing to switch up our defense this year, against them and only them. But that's the whole thing with the whole narrative that, Dan Meringue's tweet, not to go back to this thing, but, this tweet right here, man, about, can someone point me in a direction where this whole idea that a coach can game plan / scheme defensively without the appropriate personnel started? I would love to find this coach who sprinkles magic game plans on his players and suddenly their deficiencies go away, which this has become a running joke with magic game plans and magic sprinkles and all that. So we're having fun with this on Twitter. But, we've seen it.
I saw it in the 2 games I watched today.
Mm-hmm. We've seen it from the Portland Trailblazers against the Houston Rockets this year. And it was funny how, right after this, Stotts comes out with a different defensive game plan, and it's our best defensive game of the bubble, because he switched things up. That just leads me to believe, okay, why? Or it leads me to question. It leads me to question Terry Stotts. And my question for him is, why don't you do this against more teams? Why is it only the Houston Rockets that you do this against? Why don't you experiment defensively and maybe, not even run it for a whole game, but throw it in sometimes when our defense is struggling? Throw it in for more than one play, which he said he did for one play against Boston. It didn't work, which we screwed up multiple things on that play, and we went over that in our last stream. But, why don't you throw it out there if our defense is struggling? It could be the difference of a game. It could get an offense off balance. It could result in better defense. Maybe it's a better thing to run.
And the last time this worked against Houston, I don't know if it was the next night or the next game, we played at Dallas, and Doncic killed us. It's Doncic is fairly similar to the way he monopolizes the ball on the offensive end, and everything runs through him when you're Dallas. So it's why not at least try the things that worked on Harden on another player like Doncic, who's very similar and could possibly, I know Doncic is a little taller than Harden, so he can pass over double teams a little better, but I just wish we'd at least explore trying new things when teams are killing us, and other players are killing us. And so we had a lot of times where the double team happened in bad situations, or the rotations on the back end were bad, and I feel like that's because we don't practice them enough. And then you get into a situation like the Western Conference Finals last year where we don't double team at all Steph Curry, let him come off picks and get wide open threes in game 1, and then it takes till the second half of game 2 before we start to adjust to that and try something different. And then when we do, the players haven't done it enough to be crisp enough to, it's just that split second a player like Steph Curry needs to exploit that, if you're out of position and stuff. So I feel like we should have been doing that more all season long. And that's what you and I always talk about, is do different things within each game. And that way, when you have to have a game like this where it's almost the whole game where you're double teaming Harden, you're comfortable doing it because you've done it hundreds of times throughout the season. Yep. But if you just come into a game and do that like this, it makes it harder to be a defense. And then, like you said, I don't get why it only happens against Houston and then we won't see it again for the rest of the bubble or whatever.
I want to touch on the point you just made about, doing it throughout the season so that we're comfortable when we have to do it, in the playoffs or at the end of the season in a crucial game like this. Our defensive rotations behind the blitz were not good this game. It still worked, right? Because it was the right scheme to run against James Harden, and they did miss some easy threes, but they never really got comfortable until the second half offensively, which running a more pressured defense will make it harder for an offense to get comfortable. Excuse me. But our defensive rotations behind the blitz, behind the trap, still I don't think were good. I wouldn't say they were necessarily bad. On some possessions, they certainly were. On some possessions, they were solid. But overall, I think they were about they were okay. And that's the thing. It's like if we were running this all season and made it a point of emphasis to have more versatility in terms of our defensive scheme, then I think we'd be better rotating behind the trap, and we could have executed this defense even better than we did today. And if we did that, maybe we could have comfortably won this game instead of having to pull it out in the final minutes. And that's how it ends up at the end of the season. Is I always end up during the playoffs wishing we were more comfortable running different types of defenses so we could easily throw it out there as a wrinkle. Or going into game 1 of the Western Conference Finals last season, we ran the same drop big scheme against, we exposed it, then we had to switch it up, and it resulted in better play. But during the Western Conference Finals last year, our rotations still weren't as good as they could have been. If we had been running that type of defense all season, we might have been able to pull out some of those games in the Western Conference Finals if our defensive rotations were better, because we had enough repetition running that type of defense through games. So that's the whole thing. Is I just wish, not only because I think it's more effective, but it better prepares us for the playoffs if we're comfortable running multiple different types of defenses.
Yeah, it's getting laggy again. There we go.
I mean, it's just the 3 seconds of lag.
Yeah. But it's frustrating when you're making a good point and no one hears it.
I feel
it. So the problem is, if you're not good at knowing exactly where to be on the rotations, there is an element where you can make up for that, and that's just you gotta fly around and work your butt off to just whatever happens, just run and get into the right position. And I feel like we get confused, and then people don't know where to be, and then yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let me open the door behind me and see if that fixes the lag. Good old lag. Some of the people that are new are like, what the hell is this lag? This happens a bit. I'm using Wi-Fi, so it's actually been pretty good this stream. It was pretty good last stream. But I'm on Wi-Fi. I don't have the ability to hardwire this, which would make things a lot better and probably not have any lag at all. So when I move out in the next month, hopefully, I should have a hardwired setup. It's not perfect timing. I wish I could be moving out right now and building a studio for this restart. That would have been dope, but is what it is. Anyway, 3 seconds lag is what Hassan Whiteside has, says Boris Brutman. That's funny. Hassan does kind of look a little laggy sometimes when he plays.
So with regards to the double team, so you have to double team in situations where it causes pressure. It does no good to double team if you're both kind of half going at someone and the guy's like, oh, okay, here comes 2 guys, let me just pass it to someone else. Mm-hmm. You have to get up in his face, and both people have to pressure the ball and have him alter his pass or do something different. So I felt like too many times we just send a double team just to double team, and it's not the correct read, and that goes along with practicing it more often to know what types of situation you're in. So you want to double off a pick or a situation where you're close enough to James Harden to jump at him quick enough to make him have to go, oh crap, and maybe throw a bad pass or do something like that. But when you're coming at him from across the court, just because it's your turn to go double him, that doesn't work as well, and then that just leaves a guy wide open. But there's times where it's better to just let the guy who's guarding him just stay in front of him and make him shoot a tough shot versus having to double him all the time. So, if the soft doubles would only work, like Chris says, if your rotations on the back end were perfect, which they're not. So the double's only going to work if you do it in the right situations where you're putting a lot of pressure on him when he has the ball.
Which, if you put more pressure on, it does kind of increase your risk of that guy maybe splitting the trap or getting around the trap and getting out of the trap. But it does give your weak side rotations more leeway. So it's kind of a give and take And honestly, that's the thing. It's like people are like, oh, well, you trap pick and rolls. Well, you can trap in different ways. You can soft trap, you can hard trap. Yeah, like there's multiple different ways to kind of run different schemes. So there's a lot more that Terry can do throughout a season other than just drop the big on pick and rolls and just play things that way. So. I do like that against Houston, though. Against Houston, and it works. We're 3-0, man. Yeah. That's the proof. That is the proof that we can sprinkle magic sprinkles on the players with a game plan, and it might work. We're 3-0 on it this year, I think. So I don't know if I missed out on a different magic game plan or anything, but
this doesn't really have anything to do with doubling. But I just wish somehow we would get it in the players' heads that you do not need to help off a three-point shooter when the guy is in perfect position on defense. And it happened multiple times tonight where someone was driving and the person was between whoever was driving, whether it was Westbrook or Harden usually, and the basket. They were not going to get an open lane to the hoop, yet they still left too far off their man and they kick out for a three. And against teams like that, they're just waiting for you to do that so they can kick it out to that three-point shooter. So you have to stay disciplined, and it's frustrating because no matter what defensive scheme we run, it seems like we're not disciplined enough to stay in that particular defense. But I am glad to see it change tonight, and we did try something new, even though we both knew it would happen tonight since we were playing Houston. But yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah, Beavis and Butt, thank you for the $5 donation. Does Tori know who Big L is? Didn't I look him up on that stream? Is it that rapper guy that you're talking about? Is that who he's talking? Big L? Is that who he's talking about? Or am I mixing up things? I don't know. Let's talk living and dying on Melo, ISO, and Gary Trent being left open 3. Still too much missing opportunity. We talked a bit about the Melo ISOs. I would like to be a little more selective on when we decide to ISO Melo. I think we don't need to do it quite as much as we're doing if he's struggling. If he's hot, then okay, I'm fine with it. But if he's struggling, I think we should be more selective. That is my thoughts on that. Gary Trent Jr. being left open, I think they find him quite a bit. He's shooting 10 threes a game in the bubble so far. So
I do get the feeling sometimes that I wish we had run more action for him, though, to get him open. I get the same feeling that with Curry last year, Seth Curry. It's like he's on fire, run him off a pick or something off ball and get him another open shot instead of just waiting until he gets the next opportunity, if that makes sense. Kind of run a play for him every once in a while. I feel like we don't do as good a job of we don't run many sets, so it's just frustrating. He's getting all his threes just within the flow of the game versus man, this guy's hit 2 threes in a row. Let's try to get him another one and see if he hits that, and then it might be several minutes before he touches the ball again. I just like to maybe get a few more opportunities for him to shoot threes, and I know 10's a lot, so it's funny to say that, but like I said, I feel like he's not forcing a lot of them, so I would like to see him get some more open ones. But
yeah,
but he's doing it. Gary Trent's playing amazing. Like you talked about, he's easily our 4th best player, I think. So yeah.
All right, let me plug a couple things real quick. Right, I was gonna have Blazers Uprise live over on the 2nd channel, but this game went late, so I'm not actually going to do a stream over here. I'll just keep it over here. I do want to do picks against the spread at the end of this. If maybe Eric could just pull up some spreads and we can do it. No graphics or anything, but we can do that at the end. Maybe that would be fun to do it another day in a row. And because I did want to do that tonight. If you're not subscribed to that 2nd channel, there's a link in the description. Let me post it in chat. Go subscribe to that channel. We're streaming about as much as we do our post-game streams, 3 times a week or so during this restart. We're streaming over on that 2nd channel. So that is the link. And if you want some extra content, more laid back, different types, we go over the general NBA a lot more in those podcasts, and we preview the following day's games. Go subscribe to that channel.
And you guys know me. I don't usually say this. After picks against the spread last night, we had several good segments about some things that happened in the Boston game, broken down a little film for once. It was a lot of fun. So I would suggest checking that out if you're into that kind of stuff. I do want to say one thing. So apparently Stotts this morning on an interview said that the top 5 defenses give up the most field goal or 3-point field goal attempts in the league. So it doesn't make sense that we're questioning his team giving up so many 3-point shots.
My response
Did
to
you hear
that
that?
was, somebody said that, he said that. My response to that is, well, yeah, the top 5 defenses, they're probably teams that win a lot, so the other teams are trying to catch up by playing fast and shooting a lot of threes.
Yeah. If you want to talk percentage, that's much different. So Jake disagreed with me. He said that giving up threes is a scheme thing. But, like, there's no way a team like Milwaukee, who has a great defense, would be scheming to give up as many threes as possible in a game. They're just usually up by 20, and the team they're playing has to shoot a bunch to try to get back in the game.
Yep.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah. No teams are trying to give up open 3-point shots either. So, like, yeah, if you give up a bunch of threes but you can test them all, like, yeah, you should be fine. That could be good defense, right? The problem with Stotts is it gives up a lot of uncontested threes and guys get comfortable and build rhythms. That's the problem.
And here's the thing. We broke it down. We did this with when Melo was named the starter. I broke down how the percentages worked out, and we talked about both 3-point percentage. We talked about percentage of points each team breaks down for 3-pointers versus 2-pointers against us, and those were both really bad. We're near the last in the league. I think we're like 27th or something, and both of those are pretty close to that. Meanwhile, we're pretty good, like 13th in the paint, and like I think we're near the top in 2-point field goal percentage defense, which is good. And that was my whole reasoning behind not wanting to go with the bigger lineups and going because that will just magnify the problems we have on the perimeter. But those two things would be much. But I feel like we had so many people, including the person who interviewed him. I think it was on the Rip City Mornings or whatever. So they're just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But like, no one ever be like 3-point attempts. What does that have to do with anything? Like, what about how many they make against you? Because like, you could give up 100 threes a game, but if the other team only hits 10 of them, that's like tremendous defense. But like, so that doesn't matter. It matters how many they make, not how many they attempt.
Yeah.
So it's just frustrating because that's not a way to justify how bad the 3-point defense has been, and that's what drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And like, people just be like, "See, Stotts has a good point. The top 5 defenses in the league are high on the list on 3-pointers attempted against them," but that doesn't explain their defense against those 3-pointers. They all have a low percentage of makes against them. So, frustrating.
Anyway, yeah, I agree. The second thing I wanted to plug was watch party on the 6th should happen. I know it's kind of like tentative, but it should end up happening. If it doesn't, we just postpone it to a later game. But we will be streaming over on an unlisted link, which means that it won't show up for anybody unless you actually put the link in your browser. You copy paste the link and put it in, right? So it's an unlisted link. We're only giving out the link to select people, right? You'll get access to our watch party, where we will be streaming during the game and reacting to the game live on stream. Hopefully me and Eric can get our TV synced up together, and you guys can get your TV synced up with the stream or something. I don't know. It'll be a work in progress since we've never done it before. So things might be slightly out of sync, but hopefully they're close enough where we can all react to the game together, and we can react to the game live on stream for the people that have access. To get access to that stream, you can become a channel member here. There's a join button that should be below the video, and become a $5 or a $4.99 channel member or higher. It should show up in the perks there. You can buy some merch, which I will post a merch link for you guys if you want to buy some merch. If you buy some merch, you'll get access to that stream. You can do a one-time payment of $6. Just contact me if you want to do that. And then I'm doing a Twitter giveaway. I'll announce that tomorrow. So I will reach out to people tomorrow about trying to sort out the easiest way to contact with you, because I'll probably make the stream. I'm going to make the stream tomorrow and schedule it and then give you guys the link tomorrow. I'll figure that out. So if you're a Patreon donor as well, if you've been a Patreon donor, you will also get access to that, but I will message you on Patreon. So if you're a Patreon donor and want access to that, log into the Patreon and check your messages, or try and contact me and give me a better way to message you. So anyway, here is the link for the merch. So there's multiple different ways that you can get access to that stream. I think right now we have about 25 different people who will have access. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to doing that. So anyway, I saw a question earlier about, will channel members get to do picks against the spread? I think it's only the top tier of channel members next season will get to do picks against the spread. So those donating $25 or more. It might have been 10. I forget. I should memorize the perks that I have, but it says somewhere in the perks on the channel memberships. So as far as like desktop screensavers and stuff, I will get one out this month. Probably just a generic Blazers Uprise one. But then I want to get creative in future months when I have more time to really like pour into like a desktop screensaver, because shoot, I want a Blazers Uprise desktop screensaver for myself. So anyway, just had to plug a couple things. Is there any questions on anything that I just said? Brian Scalabrini says, do you think you can add some effects on the screen when someone would donate or a member pops up? We used to have that, but then I started mostly streaming over on the second channel, and I can't easily connect that. So I will like look in. I'll look into that at some point, but probably no time soon. I don't know what the clown emojis are for, but. Are you contacting via Discord for the 6th stream? If I know, like, because I know you bought merch, Dionysus, I'll just contact you through Discord. If I, like, know who you are, if you bought merch and I know you're in Discord and I know who you are in Discord, I'll just message you through Discord. If not, if you bought merch, I will, like, send out emails to the email account you have associated with the merch you bought. So, you love me? I love you too, Alex. Any other questions, let me know. And, yeah.
Will Blazers Uprise be a virtual fan? I could probably go on my mom's when she's at work, but
that'd be dope. But
yeah.
no,
you have to watch the game like through, like basically a Zoom call almost. So like it's kind of, I don't know if I want to do
and
that.
you can't like cuss or anything. Yeah, and
yeah.
People can barely hear you anyway. So I mean, it'd be cool, but like I don't know. I don't really feel it. Anyway. I do want to touch on our offense in that third quarter. I think we have the tendency, when we end up under pressure, we have the tendency to kind of bog down too much, in my opinion. It's always been my opinion. And we had Scalabrini, I might, maybe if we have time. But so our offense in the third quarter got Houston back into this game. And the only reason why we didn't end up losing the lead is because Damian Lillard hit a couple tough threes and Gary Trent, I mean, like it was guys kind of just hitting some tough shots, I thought. CJ hit a couple tough shots. It wasn't like we were getting really good looks, even when we were scoring. But we had a stretch there, man, in the second half where we had multiple possessions in a row where we kind of just dribbled at half court for 10 seconds. Maybe we'd make a pass, and then they'd pass it back, and then we dribble at half court for another 8 seconds, and then the shot clock would be running down, and we'd isolate and shoot a fadeaway. We got so stagnant. Even the announcers on TNT were noticing that, and it gets frustrating because we see during the first half ball movement is working, moving the ball is working, right? But then we kind of get away from that, and it just doesn't really make much sense to me.
Yeah, a little bit of that is like there's times where, like obviously in the first half of this game, it seemed like Dame was once again trying to set up teammates, and trying to get others involved. Um, it seems to be like one or the other. Like he's either trying to do that or he's trying to take over the game himself. And we definitely need that sometimes. But yeah, I just wish we would see how much making the extra pass helps. And but once again, like when that happens, we don't run any sort of sets or designs to get someone an easy basket. So like it just magnifies every time down the court. The mountain gets bigger and bigger because like one person misses a shot, and then the next person's got to get the ball and shoot and try to score, and then if they miss, then the third person takes a shot and he misses, and then like all of a sudden like you've only had 3 people go one-on-one each individually, but it's 3 possessions in a row and you've missed 3 times, and you probably had a couple buckets by the Rockets on the other end, and it just builds up. But like I don't know, I just wish, like especially in a game like this, you just set some cross screens in the lane between like Collins and Melo, or Collins and Nurk, or Melo and Nurk, and you get them when they come off that screen to seal their guy like right under the hoop, and you just give it to them. And like I'd like to see Melo get the ball deeper in some of his post up, because then he'd have like a little 5-foot turnaround or can lay it in versus having to shoot like a 15-foot shot. Same with Nurk. Like those guys all missed some easy shots tonight, especially Nurk and Collins. But like I like the idea of getting them easy shots. They're not going to miss those shots in most situations. So like I feel like that's the right thing to do. But we don't really have any action off the ball that's designed to get someone, okay, like we really need a basket on this play. Let's just run this one set one time and like get some action and get a good shot. It's just like, okay, we're struggling right now. CJ, save us. Dame, save us. Melo, save us. And we don't really have anything to do other than that. And that's going to cost us some games when we do that sometimes. And we're lucky it didn't cost us tonight. But
yeah, I don't understand why we don't have like a back screen set for a big. You saw Memphis do one for Brandon Clark out of a timeout where they set a back screen for him and he caught a lob. And like people say like, oh, well, like Collins and Nurkic aren't the best like lob catching bigs. But against a team like Houston, who are as small as they are, you should have some sort of back screen lob set for a big in that situation, because if it's executed decently, we should be able to get a dunk out of that, given how small Houston is. Probably, you're not going to be able to run it every time down the court. They'll see it coming. They'll be able to adjust. But that is something that we should be able to sprinkle into our offense. Our offense gets stagnant. Okay, let's run a set that gets like a back screen and a lob for a big when our offense is struggling and doesn't have ball movement. That could get us going. That could provide a spark, provide an easy bucket, instead of having stretches where we have multiple possessions in a row where we just kind of
underneath the hoop